Hello there, and welcome to This Day in History, November 2. November the 2nd is the 306th day of the year in the Gregorian calendar, with 59 days remaining until the end of the year. And today we're going to begin in 1734, when the American hunter and explorer Daniel Boone was born. He died in 1820, and I believe we spoke about him perhaps on the anniversary of his death. In 1795, American lawyer and politician and 11th President of the United States, James K. Polk, was born in Mecklenburg County, North Carolina. He died in 1849. In 1865, the 29th President of the United States, Warren G. Harding, was born in Corsica, Ohio. And some time zone news now, just in time for the time change this weekend. In 1868, New Zealand officially adopted a standard time to be observed nationally. On this date in 1889, both North and South Dakota were admitted as the 39th and 40th states of the United States. In 1913, American actor Burt Lancaster was born. He died in 1994. In 1936, the British Broadcasting Corporation initiated the BBC television service. Renamed BBC One in 1964, that channel still operates to this day. In 1942, American actress Stephanie Powers was born. In 1947, the amazing and mysterious Howard Hughes performed the maiden and only flight of the Hughes H-4 Hercules, also known as the Spruce Goose, the largest fixed-wing aircraft ever built. The Hughes flying boat, at one time the largest aircraft ever built, was piloted by designer Howard Hughes on its first and only flight. Built with laminated birch and spruce, hence the nickname Spruce Goose, this massive wooden aircraft had a wingspan longer than a football field and was designed to carry more than 700 men to battle. Development of the Spruce Goose cost a phenomenal $23 million and took so long that the war had ended by the time of its completion in 1946. The aircraft had many detractors, and Congress demanded that Hughes prove the plane airworthy. So, on November 2nd, 1947, Hughes obliged. Taking the H-4 prototype out onto Long Beach Harbor, California for an unannounced flight test. Thousands of onlookers had come to watch the aircraft taxi on the water and were surprised when Hughes lifted his wooden behemoth 70 feet above the water and flew for a mile before landing. In 1948, Truman defeated Dewey. In this phenomenal upset, Democratic incumbent Harry Truman defeated his Republican challenger, Governor Thomas E. Dewey of New York, by just over 2 million popular votes. In the days preceding the vote, political analysts and polls were so convinced that Dewey would win that the Chicago Tribune had published an early edition with the banner headline, "Dewey Defeats Truman." Boy, they had to retract that one, didn't they? In 1959, we had the quiz show scandals. 21 game show contestant Charles Van Doren admitted to a congressional committee that he had been given questions and answers in advance. I think they've made movies about this, the quiz show scandals of the 1950s. In 1960, Penguin Books was found not guilty of obscenity in the trial of R versus Penguin Books Limited, the Lady Chatterley's Lover case. On November 2, 1960, a landmark obscenity case over Lady Chatterley's Lover by D.H. Lawrence ended in the acquittal of Penguin Books. The publisher had been sued for obscenity in publishing an unexpurgated version of Lawrence's novel, which dealt with the affair between a wife of a wealthy paralyzed landowner and his estate's gamekeeper. The book had been published in a limited English language edition in Florence in 1928 and Paris the following year. An expurgated version was published in England in 1932. But in 1959, the full text was published in New York and then in London the following year. Now, I have not read Lady Chatterley's Lover, so I can't tell you what's in there. But in 1960, they felt that it was saucy enough to warrant a trial for obscenity. And the interesting thing is that I'm sure that there's stuff out there right now that's saucier than that. What a world. In 1961, Canadian singer, songwriter, producer, and actress k.d.lang was born on this date. I remember her for Trail of Broken Hearts. Leaving a trail of broken hearts is not as much fun as one might think. 1967, President Lyndon Johnson and some wise men concluded that the American people should be given more optimistic reports on the progress of the war. Well, they were probably right about that, but probably the even happier news would be that the war would end. And eventually it did, but not quite in 1967 yet. 1983, President Ronald Reagan signed a bill creating Martin Luther King Jr. Day. In 1983, President Ronald Reagan signed a bill in the White House Rose Garden designating a federal holiday honoring Martin Luther King Jr. to be observed on the third Monday of January. In 1988, the Morris worm, the first internet-distributed computer worm to gain significant mainstream media attention, was launched from MIT. 1989, a nurse's aide got life imprisonment for murder. And why did she do it? I mean, thinking she was putting people out of their misery or for financial gain, but no, this was entirely out of pure evil and meanness on her part. And it was that evil and meanness that ended up getting her caught. If you want to read more about it, you can look it up in the show notes. That's all I'm going to say about it, though. On November 2nd of the year 2000, the first residential crew arrives aboard the International Space Station. Oh my goodness. And in 2016, the Chicago Cubs defeated the Cleveland Indians in the World Series, ending the longest Major League Baseball championship drought at 108 years. And I got to tell you, this one was a tough one for me because I am a Tribe fan. I love me some Cleveland Indians. But I kind of like the Chicago Cubs too, you know. But I am partial to the Cleveland Indians, so this one was bittersweet for me, but good for the Cubs. Good on them Cubs. They won that year, so. Anyway, I think that's going to do it for us today. As always, links to my research are included in the show notes. Thank you so much for watching. Give it a like if you enjoyed this video. Consider subscribing if you haven't already, and feel free to share this video. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time. Blah, 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 coffee mug. Hello, kitty. Oh, that is out of order. All right, let's try this again. Who knows what evil lurks in the hearts of men? She's not a man. Sure would be nice if I could ever read one of these in its entirety without having to start anything over. That would be awesome. I might have to take another look at that. I'm going to have to look at that. Oh, better take a look at that. This is why I don't do live shows.